My darling children, the last thing my son, my only child, said to me on his wedding day was, "Sorry, Mom, this is a private event," as his hand rested firmly on the ornate glass door of the ballroom, barring my way. I stood there on the manicured lawn of the most expensive venue in the state, the venue I had sold my home of 40 years to pay for, and watched as he turned his back on me and disappeared into the celebration, leaving me alone in the dress I had spent a month choosing. In that moment, children, I wasn't just shut out of a party. I was shut out of the very life I had given everything to build for him. Hello, everyone. I'm what you can call Grandma Rose. My full name is Rose Miller. I'm 72 years old, and I'm from a small, quiet town in North Carolina, a place where family and community are supposed to mean everything. This is a story I have kept locked away in the most painful corner of my heart for 2 years. Even my own dearest friends, the ones who helped me pack up my life into boxes, believe I simply fell ill and couldn't make it to the wedding. They don't know the truth. They don't know that on the day my son got married, I became, for all intents and purposes, homeless for a celebration I was not welcome to attend. Until today, I finally have the courage to speak this truth, not for your pity, my dears, but to reclaim the dignity that was taken from me on those polished stone steps. Before I begin, would you do an old woman a great kindness? Please, if you would, like this video and subscribe to our channel. Your support is more than just a number to me. It feels like you're all holding my hand, giving me the strength to finally unlock that door and share the secret I have hidden for so long behind a brave smile. You see, this story isn't just about a wedding. It's about a house. Not just any house. It was the home I brought my son, Daniel, home to from the hospital. It was the home my late husband, Frank, and I built together with our own hands and our own dreams. Every scratch on the hardwood floor was a memory of Daniel learning to ride his tricycle. Every flower in the garden was a testament to Frank's love for me. The kitchen smelled perpetually of my baking, of 40 years of birthday cakes and Sunday roasts. Selling that house wasn't a financial transaction. It was like tearing out the pages of my own heart, one by one. But I did it. I did it gladly, joyfully even, because I believed I was giving my son a foundation for his own happy future. I learned, in the cruelest way possible, that he didn't want my foundation. He just wanted the money he could get for the stones. My story, the one that explains how a mother's love can be so foolishly, beautifully blind, began about 3 years ago. It all started when Daniel brought Ashley home for the first time. Oh, my Daniel. He was always such a good boy. A gentle soul, with his father's kind eyes and my soft heart. He was a boy who would spend hours helping me in the garden, who never missed a Sunday dinner, who would call me every single night before he went to bed, right up until the day he met her. He loved our home. He used to say he could never imagine living anywhere else. And then came Ashley. Good heavens, she was like a firework. Dazzling, brilliant, and full of explosive energy. She was a marketing executive, polished and ambitious, with a smile that could charm a bird from a tree. And she was utterly devoted to my Daniel. Or so it seemed. She would look at him with such adoration, hang on his every word. She was perfect to me, too. She called me Mom from the very beginning. She would rave about my cooking, admire my garden, and listen with rapt attention as I told her stories about Daniel's childhood. I remember her walking through my house for the first time, running her hand along the oak banister Frank had carved. "Oh, Mom," she'd said, her voice a reverent whisper. "This house is it's magical. It's so full of love. I can see why Daniel is the wonderful man he is. He came from this. How could I not love a woman who said such things?" I thought she understood. I thought she valued the history, the love that was soaked into the very walls of that home. They got engaged a year later. Daniel proposed in my garden, right next to the rose bushes Frank had planted for our 10th anniversary. My heart nearly burst with joy for them. We celebrated that night with champagne, and all they could talk about was their dream wedding. That's when the magazines started appearing. Ashley would bring them over, glossy, expensive bridal magazines with pages and pages of fairy tale weddings. She would point to pictures of magnificent ballrooms, of towering nine-tiered cakes, of dresses that looked like they belonged to a princess. "Isn't it a dream, Mom?" she would sigh, her eyes shining. My Daniel would look at the price tags in the articles, and a little frown would crease his brow. "Ash, honey," he'd say gently, "this stuff costs a fortune. We can have a beautiful wedding without all of—" "But it's a once-in-a-lifetime day, Danny," she would counter, her voice full of passion. "It's the day we show the world our love. It should be perfect, a real statement." I watched this little scene play out week after week. I saw the desire in her eyes and the worry in his. My heart ached for them. I wanted them to have their perfect day. My own wedding to Frank had been a simple affair at the local church, with cake and punch in the church hall. It was lovely because I had him. But I saw how much this spectacle meant to Ashley, and by extension, to my son's happiness. The idea came to me one sleepless night. I lay in my bed, in the quiet of my big empty house, and I thought about all the space, the unused bedrooms, the quiet halls. It was too much house for one old woman. And it was valuable. The town had grown, and property values had soared. The house, my beautiful home, was my only real asset, the nest egg Frank and I had built. The next Sunday, I sat them down at my kitchen table. I took a deep breath. "Children," I said, my heart thumping, "I have an idea. I want you to have the wedding of your dreams, the grand ballroom, the fairy tale dress, everything. And I know how we can do it." They looked at me, confused. "Mom, we can't afford that," Daniel said softly. "I know," I said, smiling. "But I can. I'm going to sell the house." The silence that followed was deafening. Daniel looked horrified. "Mom, no, absolutely not. This is our home. I would never, ever let you do that." But Ashley was quiet. Her eyes, which had been downcast, slowly lifted to meet mine. There was a flicker of something in them, a sharp, calculating gleam that I mistook for stunned disbelief. "Mom, you can't be serious," she whispered, but her voice lacked Daniel's conviction. "I have never been more serious," I insisted, my own voice full of a giddy, sacrificial joy. "Listen to me. This house is too big for me. My memories of your father aren't in these walls. They are in my heart. Selling it will give you the most amazing start in life, a perfect wedding and a down payment for a beautiful new home for you and the grandchildren you will one day give me. It's not a sacrifice. It is an investment in my family's future. It is my gift to you." It took a week to convince Daniel. A week of Ashley working on him in private, I now realize. He finally relented, tears in his eyes. He hugged me so tightly, burying his face in my shoulder. "You're the best mom in the world," he sobbed. "I don't deserve this." Oh, my sweethearts. I never knew how true those words would turn out to be. The next few months were a blur. The house sold in a day for a shocking amount of money. Then came the packing. 40 years of life, of love, of memories, packed away into brown cardboard boxes. Each one felt like a piece of my soul being taped shut. I gave them furniture, family heirlooms, my wedding china. I moved into a small, soulless rental apartment across town, telling myself it was temporary. But the joy on Ashley's face as she booked the Evergreen Grand Ballroom, as she bought a designer gown that cost more than my first car, as she hired the most expensive photographers and florists, it made my sacrifice feel worthwhile. I wrote the checks, huge checks, transferring my life's equity into her fairy tale fantasy. The venue alone was a deposit of over $50,000. I was funding their dream. I was the beloved, celebrated matriarch making it all possible. I was so blinded by my love for my son, I never once saw the shadow of the knife he was holding behind his back. My dears, once the check for the house cleared, it was like a dam had broken. The money, my money, the money that held the memories of 40 years of my life with Frank, began to flow out in a torrent. And the warmth of their gratitude, which had been a comforting sun on my face, began to feel different. It was a little less like sunshine, and a little more like the hot, demanding glare of a spotlight. At first it was just an assumption. Ashley would call me, her voice bubbling with excitement. Mom, I found the most incredible florist. They can create a literal wall of orchids for the ceremony. It's only a $10,000 deposit. I'll send you the invoice. There was no question. No, would you be willing to? It was simply a statement of fact, an instruction. I would take a deep breath, my heart doing a little flutter of anxiety, and I would write the check. After all, I had promised them their dream wedding. Little by little, my role in the planning began to shrink, while my role as the bank grew. In the beginning, Ashley had asked for my opinion on everything. Mom, which invitation font do you like? Should we have the string quartet play Bach or Vivaldi? But now, the questions stopped. I was no longer a collaborator. I was the treasury. I would hear about decisions after they were made. We've booked a 7-piece band for the reception. Daniel would tell me, a forced cheerfulness in his voice. Oh, that's wonderful, dear, I'd say. How much will that be? He would wince, just a little. It's a lot, Mom, but Ashley says you can't put a price on memories. You can't put a price on memories. The irony of that statement, coming from the boy who had just let me sell a house full of them, was a bitter pill to swallow. But I swallowed it. For his happiness. A cold fear, a tiny shivering mouse of a fear, began to scurry around the edges of my heart. Maybe I was just being paranoid. I would see them for our weekly dinners, which had moved from my warm, spacious kitchen to their small apartment, and the conversation was no longer about family. It was about the wedding. It was a constant barrage of logistics, of vendors, of staggering costs. It was a business meeting where I was the sole silent investor. My own life, my own needs, became completely invisible. I was in a new, unfamiliar apartment, surrounded by boxes I didn't have the heart to unpack. I was lonely. I missed my neighbors. I missed my garden. I tried to talk to Daniel about it once, on the phone. I'm finding it a little hard to adjust, sweetheart, I confessed, my voice smaller than I intended. The quiet is very loud here. There was a pause, and then I heard Ashley's voice in the background. Danny, I need you to look at these catering menus. Then Daniel came back on the line, his voice rushed. I know it's tough, Mom, but think of how happy we're all going to be after the wedding. It will all be worth it. Hey, I gotta run. Ashley needs me. It will all be worth it. I clung to that phrase like a life raft. The wedding became a symbol of a future happiness that I hoped would include me. I told myself to be strong, for the children's sake. Then, the first truly cutting incident happened. It was about the guest list. Mom, we need your list of friends you'd like to invite, Ashley said one evening, tapping away on her laptop. My heart soared. My friends! My lovely bridge club ladies, my neighbors of 30 years who were like family, my dear friend Carol, who had held my hand at Frank's funeral. I carefully wrote down a list of 20 names, people who had watched my son grow up, people who loved him. I gave Ashley the list the next day. She glanced at it, her perfectly manicured brow furrowing. 20? She said, her tone sharp. Margaret, the venue charges $250 per head. This list alone is $5,000. I was taken aback. But these are my dearest friends, I said. They are our family. They aren't your friends. They're your friends, she said, a cruel distinction in her voice. This is our day. It's about our future, not your past. We need to make room for my father's business partners, my sorority sisters. You know, people who are relevant to our life now. She took a red pen, and with a few swift, brutal strokes, crossed off half the names on my list. You can have 10, she announced, as if granting me a great favor. Pick your top 10, Tati. I stood there, watching the red ink bleed through the names of people I loved, and my heart felt like someone was squeezing it with their bare hands. She wasn't just cutting a guest list, she was cutting me out, piece by piece. She was erasing my history, my community, my life, and paying for it with my own money. I looked to Daniel. He was standing by the window, his back to me, staring out at the street. He said nothing. His silence was his agreement. From that day on, a wall of ice began to form between us. The phone calls became less frequent. The planning meetings I was invited to were only the ones that involved writing a check. I felt like a ghost at the feast, providing the food but forbidden from taking a seat. At that moment, I felt like the sky was falling, and I was utterly alone. I tried to talk to Daniel again, this time in person. I cornered him as he was leaving their apartment. "Daniel," I pleaded, "what is happening? It feels like you and Ashley don't want me to be a part of this anymore." He looked miserable, his eyes shifting away from mine. "That's not true, Mom," he mumbled. "It's just, Ashley is under a lot of pressure. She has a very specific vision. She wants everything to be perfect. And am I not part of that vision?" I asked, my voice trembling. He finally looked at me, and his eyes were full of a pain and a weakness that broke my heart. "Please, Mom," he begged. "Just try to understand. Don't make things difficult. After the wedding, everything will go back to normal, I promise. I don't make things difficult." My love, my concerns, my feelings, they were difficult. Tears just wouldn't stop flowing that night as I sat alone in my rented apartment, the ghost of my old life mocking me from the unopened boxes. I was funding a celebration of a new family, a family that seemed to have no room for me in it. The breaking point, the final shattering blow, was delivered with the casual cruelty of a routine phone call, just 1 week before the wedding. It was Ashley. Her voice was syrupy sweet, the way it always was when she was about to ask for something. "Hi, Mom. I hope you're having a wonderful day," she chirped. "Listen, I'm just finalizing the seating chart for the head table, and I wanted to run something by you." "Of course, dear," I said, a foolish flicker of hope in my heart. "Well," she began, "my mom and dad will be sitting with us, of course, and my maid of honor and the best man. And I have 2 of my father's most important business partners, and the table is full. So what I was thinking, which I think is a lovely idea, is that you could host your own table with your 10 friends. You'll be the grande dame of your own table. Won't that be fun?" I was silent. I couldn't breathe. I was not to be seated at the head table. I, the mother of the groom, the woman who had sold her home to make this day possible, was being relegated to a secondary table in the corner with my 10 friends. I was being demoted in front of everyone from mother to a distinguished guest. An important one, of course, but a guest nonetheless. "Fun," I repeated, my voice a dead, hollow echo. "Yes," she said, completely missing or ignoring my tone. "It will be great. Now, listen, the final payment for the venue is due tomorrow. It's the last big one, 50,000. Could you drop the check off at the ballroom in the morning?" And there it was. In the same breath, she had exiled me. She was asking me for a check that represented 20 years of my husband's hard work. In that moment, something inside me didn't just break, it died. The loving, hopeful, endlessly forgiving mother's heart I had, it turned to stone. The fog of my grief and love cleared, and I saw her and my son with a sudden, terrible clarity. They didn't love me. They were using me. They had gutted my past to finance their future, and now that the money was almost gone, they were done with me. I looked around my sterile apartment at the boxes that contained the life I had given away. And as I did, a new feeling began to crystallize from the pain. It was a cold, hard, and utterly clear resolution. I would write the check. I would put on my beautiful dress. I would go to that wedding. And I would give them one last, final gift. A lesson in the true meaning of the words, what goes around, comes around. My dears, that final, brutal phone call was the breaking point. It was the final, callous shove that pushed me from a cliff of grief into a cold, clear ocean of reality. The pain was so immense, so shocking, it went beyond tears. It was a clarifying fire that burned away all my illusions, all my excuses, all my foolish, hopeful love. I finally saw them. I saw the empty space where their gratitude should have been. In that moment, something inside me broke, yes, but what emerged from the wreckage was not a victim. It was a woman my own son didn't know. It was Frank's wife, a woman who had managed household budgets on a shoestring, who had faced down life's hardships with quiet strength, and who knew the value of $1 because she remembered the hard work that went into earning it. I knew I couldn't go on like this anymore. I wouldn't just fade away into a corner table. I wouldn't be a sad, forgotten footnote at the wedding I had paid for with the very soul of my life. I did exactly what Ashley asked. The next morning, I drove to the bank and got a cashier's check for $50,000, the final payment for the Evergreen Grand Ballroom. My hands did not tremble as I handed it to the teller. From trembling hands that had packed up a lifetime of memories, I now moved with firm determination. Then I drove to the venue. It was a magnificent place, a palace of marble floors and soaring ceilings. I met with the wedding coordinator, a polished woman named Patricia. I handed her the check. "Here is the final payment for the Miller-Thompson wedding," I said, my voice calm and professional. "Oh, thank you, Mrs. Miller," she gushed. "It's going to be a magnificent event. Ashley has planned every detail to perfection." "I'm sure she has," I said with a small, tight smile. And then I began my counterattack. It wasn't loud. It wasn't angry. It was a grandma-style counterattack, using the quiet wisdom and legal common sense that a long life teaches you. I was solving my problem with foresight, not force. "Tricia," I said, my tone shifting to one of polite, businesslike inquiry, "I have a small question about the contract. As the primary financier for this event, indeed the sole financier, I just want to ensure all our arrangements are in order. The check I have just given you is from my personal account, as was the initial deposit. Could you just confirm for my records that I am listed as the client on the contract?" Patricia's professional smile faltered for a fraction of a second. She tapped on her computer. "Well," she said, hesitating, "the bride, Ashley Thompson, is listed as the primary contact, and she signed the agreement?" "I understand," I cut in gently but firmly. "But the payments have all come from the Rose Miller Trust. The funds are from the sale of my home, a fact I am happy to document. Legally, that makes me the client, the one who is, for all intents and purposes, hosting this event. I just want to ensure there are no misunderstandings. I wasn't just swallowing my anger anymore. I was using my voice, speaking a language of quiet authority she would understand. I could see the gears turning in her head. She knew I was right. The person who pays the bills is the client. "Yes, of course, Mrs. Miller," she said, her tone shifting to one of deep respect. "We consider you the host of the event. Is there something I can help you with?" "Yes," I said. "Thank you. There is just one thing. I need to be certain that there will be no issues with the guest list. As the host, I need to ensure my personal guests are admitted without any trouble. My name is Rose Miller. Please make sure the staff at the door know that I and my party are to be given immediate access." "But of course, Mrs. Miller," she said, looking shocked that I would even have to ask. "You're the mother of the groom. You're our guest of honor." "Thank you, dear," I said, patting her hand. One just likes to be sure. I had planted the seed. I had established my position. She now saw me not as just a mother, but as the powerful client paying her salary. The next few days, I was a woman on a mission. From passive endurance of their casual cruelty, I moved to the active preparation of my response. The first call I made was to my bank. I spoke to the manager, a man I had known for 30 years. I explained that I had just issued a very large cashier's check and that due to some potential contractual issues with the vendor, I might need to cancel it. I asked him to explain the exact procedure. "You would need to come into the bank in person, Rose," he explained, "and sign a stop payment order. As long as the check has not yet been deposited and cleared, we can cancel it, and the funds will be returned to your account immediately. And how quickly do you think a check I deliver on a Friday morning will be deposited and cleared?" I asked. "With a large check like that, they'll likely deposit it Friday afternoon, but it won't clear our bank until Monday morning at the earliest," he said. "You would have all day Saturday and Sunday to cancel it." The wedding was on Saturday. It was perfect. My next call was to my 10 friends, the ones Ashley had so graciously allowed me to invite. I told them how much I was looking forward to seeing them at the wedding. And then I told them my plan. Not all of it, just the part that concerned them. Now, girls, I said, there may be a little bit of confusion at the door. If for any reason they give you the slightest bit of trouble, I want you to step aside, make no fuss, and call me immediately. The day of the wedding arrived. I spent the morning getting ready. A strange sense of calm settled over me. I put on the beautiful lilac dress I had bought, did my hair and makeup, and looked at the woman in the mirror. The sad, heartbroken woman from a week ago was gone. In her place was a woman who looked elegant, determined, and in control. I arrived at the Evergreen Grand Ballroom an hour early, just as I had seen the wedding party do in the photos. I saw the photographers bustling about, the florists putting the final touches on the obscene wall of orchids I had paid for. I saw Ashley, a vision in her $10,000 dress, directing everyone like a queen. I saw Daniel. He looked pale and nervous in his tuxedo. He saw me, and his face was a mixture of relief and guilt. "Mom," he said, rushing over. "You look beautiful." "Thank you, dear," I said, my voice serene. "You look very handsome." "Listen, Mom, about the seating," he started, wringing his hands. "Don't you worry about a thing," I said, cutting him off. "It's your special day. I wouldn't want to make things difficult." I smiled at him, a genuine smile, and the power of it seemed to unnerve him. I waited. I watched as the guests began to arrive, greeted by two ushers at the door with a guest list on a small podium. Then I saw my friends arrive, a lovely gaggle of elegant older women, all chattering excitedly. They approached the door. And then I saw it. The young usher, a boy who was probably a cousin of Ashley's, stopped them. He scanned the list. I saw him shake his head. I saw my friend Carol pull out her phone. A moment later, my own phone buzzed. It was Carol. "Rose," she whispered, "he says we're not on the list." "Thank you, Carol," I said calmly. "Just wait right there for me." I hung up the phone. This was it. The moment of truth. I smoothed down my dress, took a deep breath, and walked toward the grand entrance of the ballroom I had paid for. I walked past my friends, giving them a small, reassuring nod. I approached the young usher. "Good afternoon," I said politely. "I am Rose Miller, the mother of the groom." He gave me a strained, apologetic smile. "I'm so sorry, Mrs. Miller, but I don't see your name on the guest list." I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I simply turned and saw my son, Daniel, standing near the doorway, having witnessed the whole exchange. I walked over to him. "Daniel," I said, my voice still quiet, still calm. "There seems to be a mistake. Your usher is telling me that my name, and the names of my friends, are not on the guest list." He wouldn't look at me. He looked at the floor, at the ceiling, anywhere but at my face. Ashley glided over, her face a mask of false sympathy. "Oh, Mom," she said. "I am so sorry. There must have been a mix-up with the printer. It's such a mess." It was a lie so blatant, so insulting, it was almost laughable. This was no mistake. This was their final, cruelest cut. They had taken all my money, and now they were physically barring me from the event. They were going to have their perfect, fairy tale wedding, free of any inconvenient old mothers or their irrelevant friends. "So you're saying I can't come in?" I asked, my voice dangerously soft. Daniel finally looked at me, his eyes pleading. "Mom, please don't make a scene." And then he said the words that sealed his fate. He put his hand on the glass door, a gentle but firm barrier. "I'm sorry, Mom," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "This is a private event." He turned his back on me and walked into the ballroom. And as the door swung shut, I saw my reflection in the glass. I saw a well-dressed old woman, standing alone. But I wasn't heartbroken anymore. I was liberated. He had just given me the final justification I needed. I turned to my friends, who were watching in horrified silence. "Girls," I said, my voice ringing with a clarity and strength that surprised even me. "Change of plans. The wedding is off. I'm taking you all out for the best dinner of your lives. But first," I said, pulling out my phone, I have to make one very important phone call. The phone call, my dears, was very short. It was to the emergency contact number the bank manager had given me. A calm, professional voice answered. "Rose," I said, my own voice clear as a bell. "It's Rose Miller. I need to place an immediate stop payment order on cashier's check, number 4752, issued yesterday. The one for $50,000. There was a moment of typing on the other end. "I see it right here, Rose," the man said. "Consider it done. The stop payment is in effect as of now. The funds have been secured in your account." "Thank you," I said, and I hung up. And just like that, it was done. The clear outcome of my son's actions was now in motion. I turned to my 10 dear friends, who were looking at me with wide, astonished eyes. "Well," I said with a smile that for the first time in months reached my eyes, "it seems my budget for a wedding has just been freed up. Who's hungry?" We didn't go home. Oh no. I took them to a restaurant I had only ever dreamed of going to, the kind of place with white tablecloths and sommeliers. We sat at a big round table, and I ordered the best champagne. We ate lobster and steak and decadent chocolate desserts. We laughed. We told stories. We celebrated our friendship, a bond far more valuable than any private event. In the midst of my deepest heartbreak, I found a profound and unexpected joy. Meanwhile, back at the Evergreen Grand Ballroom, the gears of consequence had begun to turn. About an hour into our magnificent dinner, my phone buzzed. It was a frantic, almost hysterical text from Daniel. "Mom, the venue coordinator is here. She says the final check bounced. You have to call them. Fix this." I took a delicate sip of my champagne, and I texted back one simple sentence. "Sorry, son. This is a private event." The fallout, as my friends later told me, was spectacular. The wedding coordinator, Patricia, a woman you do not cross, informed Ashley and Daniel that without the final payment, all services would be terminated immediately. The 7-piece band stopped playing mid-song. The waiters who were preparing to serve the $200 per plate dinner began clearing the tables. The open bar was abruptly closed. The guests, confused and murmuring, were informed that due to unforeseen contractual issues, the reception had been canceled. They were asked to leave. In the middle of her fairy tale wedding, Ashley, in her $10,000 dress, was left standing in a silent, empty ballroom, her perfect day in ruins around her. The lesson they learned that day was a hard and very public one. They learned that you cannot take and take and take from a person and expect there to be no consequences. They learned that love is not a blank check. They thought they could have the wedding of their dreams by erasing me from the picture, but they forgot one crucial detail. I was the one holding the camera. And so, to all of you out there, my dear hearts, I want to speak to you directly from my own experience. If you are giving and giving of yourself, of your love, of your resources, until you feel empty, please listen to Grandma. Children, remember Grandma's words. Your love is a gift, not an obligation. Your generosity should be a choice, not an assumption. At this age, I finally understand that setting a boundary is not an act of meanness. It is the highest act of self-respect. I hope you will never have to sell your home to learn that lesson. I hope you know, deep in your bones, that your presence, your love, your very being, is the most valuable thing you have to offer. And it is not to be given to those who would shut you out in the cold. After that night, my life changed. With the $50,000 returned to my account, along with the rest of the money from the sale of my house that hadn't been spent, I bought a lovely little condominium in a beautiful community. It's not my old house, but I'm filling it with new memories, with my friends, with laughter. I am happy. I have not spoken to Daniel or Ashley since that day. I hear from other people that they are still married, but that their fairy tale began under a very dark cloud of debt and humiliation. I pray for my son. I pray that one day he will understand the true cost of what he did, but his journey of understanding is his own to take. I have finally started my own. Sharing this story has been the final step in closing that chapter of my life. Thank you for listening, for allowing me to turn a painful memory into a lesson in strength. Please, my sweethearts, if you found value in this story, do like the video, subscribe to our channel, and turn on the little notification bell. It would warm my heart to see you in our next story. And please, share your own thoughts in the comments. Tell me about a time you had to stand up for yourself. Your stories give me, and so many others, such incredible strength. Grandma will always love you all. Remember that you are the host of your own life's party. Don't ever let anyone make you feel like you're not on the guest list. You deserve a seat at the head table, always. May you all be treated with the love and honor you so richly deserve. Love you all. This is Grandma Rose, and I'll see you in the next story.